I'm a guy who's gotten to experience a lot of things. I've waved the green flag at Daytona. I have wrote a real country song in Nashville and created some content with some real cool guys. And yes, these have been once in a lifetime experiences and they have been great, but I don't necessarily think they're the stuff that matter the most. What I think matters the most is having a list of experiences that you've done that have made you a better human and made you feel the fullness that is life. And doing this stuff isn't just about crossing something off of a list to get to the next one. It's about having experience that make you a better person, but also make you appreciate the stuff in the future. You know, people always say that life is short, and what I think makes it even shorter is if you don't appreciate the small, simple things in life that make life worth living. And that's what today's list is all about. I got 12 things that every guy like you and me should experience. And what I like about this list is it's not unattainable. I think that anyone can do these things. Yes, some of them cost money, but a lot of them don't cost any money at all. So let's dive into this list that makes you feel alive, maybe gives you some dad lore in the future, and hopefully makes you a better man in the process. First thing on our list is being a regular somewhere. And it could be anywhere. It could be a restaurant, it could be a bar. Just be a regular somewhere. There's a few places that I've been a regular at in my life, and the one that really sticks out to me is the bar that's on our lake. We've been going to this bar for years, and it feels kind of like a family. You walk in, the bartender says what's up, he brings you a bucket of Busch Light without you even asking. It allows you to go to a place that isn't your home, that isn't your work, that makes you truly be able to relax and decompress from life. Yes, going and doing new experiences in terms of, hey, we're in a new city, let's go to a new bar. That's fun. But I think in life it's important to have a place where you can go, relax, let your hair down, be yourself. And I think being a regular somewhere allows you to do that. Think about it like a group of guys you've been friends with for life. Because you have such a deep relationship, you go so far back that stuff is just funnier with this group. And half the fun is just talking about all the old fun that you used to have at that place. So if you're like, hey Miles, let's do it. I'm gonna be a regular somewhere. One, just pick a spot. Start going there, and then the most important thing is don't go there and be shy. And the second part of this is that it just takes time. And enjoy the process. Becoming a regular somewhere. It's pretty fun. The next thing I think we should experience is shooting a buck. I've played college football, I've gotten millions of views on the internet, and I've had sex. And there's just not a lot that you can compare to shooting a buck. It's almost hard that this is on the list because it's really hard to describe the feeling of this whole experience. There's just nothing in the world like buck fever. If you are in the woods or you're in a deer stand and you see a big buck come trotting through, your heart starts pounding. Nothing else in the world matters. You're not thinking about any problems you have. You're not thinking about if you're hungry. You're not thinking about trying to get laid. All you're thinking about is just you and the buck. You know, people can laugh at Luke Bryan for his video going, is he down? Is he down? Is he down? If you've ever shot a buck, you are like, yes, Mr. Bryan, I know exactly how you feel in that video. But I think that the secondary part of it that's also awesome is the story that you tell about it. It goes from being your singular experience to a shared experience with the people you're hunting with. That's what makes it great. So if you've never shot a buck before and you don't know where to start, one, start talking to people. Maybe someone will take you hunting. But there's also a lot of public land you can go hunt on. Trust me, it's an experience like nothing else. The next experience on our list is going to a Division I Power 5 college football game. This to me is the ultimate American experience. When people from Europe say that Americans don't have culture, they have never been to a college football game. And what makes college football so great is it just does such a phenomenal job at the build-up. You start in the tailgating lots. Everyone's got the school colors on. You got chants going. People are drinking beer. They're eating meats. It's building to kick off. And then you get in the stadium and chants start happening. You do the national anthem. You got a flyover coming over top. The band starts playing and you got 52 guys that are all out there for the love of the game, not because they're getting paid millions millions of dollars. Some of them are getting paid millions of dollars now. They're doing it because they want to run down on kickoff and they want to ram their head into another human being, all for the sake of a game. And I think what's cool about it is you don't even necessarily need to have gone to the school. One of my favorite places is going to Iowa City at Kinnick Stadium. I didn't go to University of Iowa, but the experience there is like nothing else. The next experience on our list is having a real conversation with your dad. This one's a little different than obviously the college football. It can have the same impact on your life. Being a guy who grew up in the Midwest, and if you grew up in the Midwest, you probably have the feeling that your dad doesn't really love to be vulnerable. And it's not that your dad is shut down to his family or that he doesn't love you guys. He just is uncomfortable with opening up. There needs to be a vessel in which you have a real conversation with him. These guys need a little bit of real conversation foreplay. And the best ways to warm up your dad to have a real conversation with him is either getting some booze in him, fix something with him, and that's pretty much it. And when I say a real conversation, I mean a real conversation. I don't mean talking about his work or sports. I mean talking to him about, so what was Grandpa like growing up? What made you decide to start a business instead of just get a job? How'd you pull Mom? Dads are our role models as guys. You know, there's a lot of people that say that their dad is their hero. They've helped shape who they are as a human being. I just think it's really important to get to know that guy, and can be very tough to do because they do have so many walls up. But if you can find ways to tear those walls down, not only are you going to be better for it and appreciate him and your family more, he's also going to be a happier human being. I think all guys are kind of craving deep down to have real conversations with people, but they just sometimes don't know how to do it. So if you get that opportunity with your dad, I think it's just important to take him up on it, because that's the stuff when you're old and you're thinking about the best times in your life. It's gonna be, oh, I remember this time me and my dad had 14 whiskeys in the garage and we just talked about life. Okay, I was vulnerable with you guys. You gotta get vulnerable with me and hit the subscribe button, please. It's the least you could do after I just was almost tearing up about my own dad. All right, now I'm gonna pull a page out of my dad's book and put the walls back up and talk about the next experience, and that's getting wasted every once in a while. Sometimes life problems don't need to be solved. Sometimes it's just all up here in your brain, and a great way to just reset your thinking, your brain, is to not worry about stuff, get blackout drunk, wake up the next day refreshed. Well, wake up 4 days later feeling refreshed. It's a phenomenal way to blow off steam. Now, if you're doing it every weekend, that's a problem. But if you're doing it a few times a year, maybe 3-4 times a year, you just let loose, you don't worry about anything, and you just blow off some steam by having way too many drinks with some of your good buddies, that can be almost a form of therapy. And to go back to the last experience, this is how you develop dad lore to later tell your kids in the future. A lot of the experience we've been talking about so far have been with other people. It's been about doing something collectively together. And the next experience is all about doing something alone. That's the next thing on the list. Just, you need to do stuff alone. Do something alone. A wise man once said that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit in a room quietly by himself. I think there's a lot of layers to this one, actually. I think someone who's okay with just doing stuff alone, one that shows an emotional maturity that I don't need to have people around me. I'm okay with what's going on up here, that if I'm alone, I still like myself. And I mean, this could be anything. It could be doing a project by yourself in the garage. It could be going to dinner by yourself, which if you haven't done, pretty pleasant experience. You can just sit there, enjoy your meal, have a drink, just hang out. When I think about this, for me, like, golf is awesome. To golf with a foursome, that's really fun, having drinks, having a good time. But I also think some of the best times I have golfing is when I just go out there by myself and it's just me whacking a ball around, just enjoying my day. Also, the other added benefit is people can get really annoying after a while, and so just going and not being around people is pretty nice too. Next experience on our list is having a buddy you only see once every 6 months. Yeah, it's great having a best friend you see all the time, but if you have a buddy that you only see or check in with once every 6 months, once every 12 months, it's just a different experience that can be just as fun. I got a buddy who lives out in Idaho. We went to college together. and I probably see him maybe once a year. And I don't think either of us are that upset about it, but when we do get together, it's just such a great time. I think this is one of the more underrated items on the list because with a friend like this, there's no pressure. You're gonna hang out because you are great friends, not because you're trying to maintain a certain relationship or you feel like you have to. You're like, I want to see this person when I go to town, when they come to town, and I think that that's something that's kind of special. What I also like about this friend is you kind of have the exact same humor style. And I think if you got a friend that you just only send all of your darkest humor to, it's a good buddy. The next experience on the list might not be fun in the moment, but I promise you'll like it later, and that is just getting in over your head. If you've never gotten in over your head, you haven't really lived. We spend a lot of our modern life now trying to eliminate inconvenience. I think it's good for humans to experience inconvenience, stuff not to go their way, because it makes you a better guy down the road. It also just makes for great stories. No one's ever told a story where everything's gone right and been like, wow, that was a great story. I remember a very specific time where I put out a shirt, the Boys Are Buzzing shirt. We sold, I think it was like 3,000 to 4,000 of these shirts, and we were not prepared to print and fulfill 3,000 to 4,000 shirts in 30 days. And I just remember all of us looking at each other being like, this is great, we sold a lot of shirts. How are we gonna fulfill all of these? What's awesome now is me and my brother will still talk about how we were in a 1,000 square foot shop space with shelves everywhere and you had to walk like this to get in between them because we had to fulfill all these orders, and how crazy it was that that's where we were and where we are now. And I think that's what's important about getting in over your head. It's a clear marking point in your life of going, this is where I was and look how far I've come. The next experience on our list that I think everyone should do is just help a buddy out in a tight spot. This one's pretty simple. I think that there's a special bond you build with someone when they're in a tight spot, they don't know where to turn, they're in over their head, and you're there willing to help them out. If the last one is all about you being in over your head, this next one is all about your buddy being in over his head and you being there to help him through the process. And just like you being in a tight spot makes you a better person, you helping out a buddy in a tight spot makes your relationship with that person that much better. Yeah, I think that there's a reason why veterans and military people have a special bond with each other, because they've just helped each other in tight spots as well as had someone else help them while they're in a tight spot. And I think that that's like a special bond that you don't get in a lot of other spots. So if you see a buddy in a tight spot, help them out. Not because they'll owe you or anything like that, but because it's just the right thing to do and makes the relationship a lot better. The next experience on our list is one that I like to do quite often. I did a hobbies video a few episodes ago. You can find that right here, where I talk about how I have interests all over the place and I try and do hobbies left and right. So the next experience I think every guy should do is completely nerd out on something, even if it seems out of character. I mean, I've nerded out on all sorts of stuff. I've nerded out on space. I've nerded out on Dungeons and Dragons. And one of my most recent things that I've been nerding out on is architecture. Just figuring out, why do some buildings feel cool and why do some buildings feel bad? And when I say nerd out, I mean you gotta nerd out. You gotta go down to the fundamentals. I started nerding out in architecture. I started with the basics. Points, lines, planes, and volume, baby. You gotta start there and build your way up. And like I said earlier, it's okay if it's out of character. Me getting interested in how Dungeons and Dragons works, kind of out of character. Even nerding out on architectural design is a little bit weird. But I think it makes you a more well-rounded human being. Plus, it's like kind of cool to be a Renaissance man, right? The next experience on our list is something that has probably changed my life the most and has made me a different human being the most, and that's having a kid. And when they tell you that there's just no experience like it, there's no describing what it's like to become a dad or a mom, I hate to say it, but they're right. You just can't know what it's like until you have a kid. And it's really weird because they come out and suddenly you don't even remember what your life was like before they were born. When you have a kid, there's a new sense of purpose that goes into your life. Before, it's I'm trying to improve my career or get better at golf. And then you're like, my new purpose is can I raise a phenomenal human being? And I think what's also cool is I feel like sometimes kids come along in the best way possible. We had our kid about 1.5 years ago, and professionally was in a funk and not in a great spot. He's born, he's got to go to the NICU for 2 weeks, and suddenly all of those problems that you had in your professional life just don't matter when you're sitting there with your newborn kid and you're wondering how healthy he's gonna be, especially right when he comes out. Like, is he gonna make it? Obviously he's a healthy kid now. Like, sometimes when you're having a bad day, like, you just need to go home and see your kid, because they don't care how good you are at your job or how many views you got on the internet. They just care that you're there with them and that you're playing with them and that you give them the attention that they deserve. It's kind of an unconditional love that they don't care about anything else other than just hanging out with you, and that feels pretty good as a dad. Woo! All right, the next experience on our list is that you should have the best steak of your life. I love this order, actually. Yeah. And now I understand why my dad is so shitty at being vulnerable. You know how hard that was for me to talk about my kid like that? All right, walls back up. Let's talk some steak, folks. This one's actually cool because I just had the best steak of my life. I was just in New York City, and my buddy who used to live there said, Miles, I have to take you to this steakhouse. It is the best steak I've ever had in my life. And when your buddy says that, you're like, okay, yeah, all right. We went to the restaurant called Cote, which it's very expensive. So I understand that not everyone is like, I'm gonna spend that much money on a steak, and I get it. But if one time in your life you splurge and you kind of write a blank check for a phenomenal steak, I promise you that it will be worth it in the long run. When I put that A5 Kobe beef in my mouth, my world was forever changed. I now, when I'm dropping dad lore on my children, can say, let me tell you about the best steak I ever had, son. And I'm not saying you have to go to the only Michelin star Korean barbecue restaurant in the world, like I did. Not to brag. You just need to have the best steak of your life. It just gives you something to compare everything else to. It makes steaks after that a little bit more of a fun experience, because you're like, you know what? That steak was good, but it just still wasn't that steak I had before. But the excitement of trying to beat that steak is what can add a whole new element to going out to eat. Plus, I just think it's kind of like if life had like a Boy Scout badges to acquire. Having the best steak of your life is one of the best badges that you can get on that. All right, guys, so that's the 12 experiences I think guys like you and I should have. If you've experienced these, let me know. What was it like for you? If I didn't have something on the list that you think that I should have, let me know. Send this to a buddy that you haven't seen in 6 months, and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you in the next one.